What's going on, guys? This is Ultra Sean. I'm back with another video for Street Fighter 2 TV, and today's topic is going to be about what do you need to do to get better. Now, real quick disclaimer, there are different ways of getting better for different people, so I'm going to share how I was able to get better and the things that I did. Now, first off, I'll show off this little trophy right here. Now, I won this first place trophy at the Missouri GameCom just last week. Went there and did my best, was able to come out on top. Now, generally when you enter tournaments, you're gonna find there's some pretty strong competition out there. So with that being said, you have to figure out what you need to do to win, what you need to do to get better, so on and so forth. So for today's video, I'm gonna talk about that a little bit. All right, so for tip number one, and these tips are no particular order, just FYI. Number one is, first, obviously, you're gonna learn your character. And this is gonna work for all fighting games. Doesn't matter if it's Street Fighter 2 or Street Fighter 5 or whatever. This will work for all fighting games, okay? So number one, pick your game, okay? Pick the game that you're gonna stick with, and you learn that one, and you learn that one good. And what do I mean by, learning the game? I mean learning, your character, learning the movement options, learning any sort of special modes or commands or the system that the game has, and then learning your character, and I'll go into that a little bit more. But anyway, so first thing you do is play the game and do a little bit of research and understand what modes and mechanics and all that stuff that your game is about. I'll give you a good example. If you play Street Fighter Alpha 2, you're gonna have a good time, but then you're gonna get blown up by a custom combo and you're gonna eat like 80% damage, and you're gonna be like, son of a bitch, what the hell? Because you didn't realize. So before you go into that game, you need to at least give yourself a primer and figure out how things are and how the flow of the game is, and what does this button do for this, and what does this super bar do for this, and so on and so forth. Make sure you know the games and you know the mechanics of that game too. Okay, number one, go ahead and just learn the game, study up on the mechanics. That way you're not surprised when something happens, because something will happen, and we don't want you to get surprised. Okay, number two, learn your character. When I first started playing Street Fighter 2 competitively, seriously, it was in Singapore, and one of the guys who played there that was really good, that would always kick my ass, he told me straight away, he said, Sean, he said, do me a favor, learn a character. He said, because I see you just choose whatever characters, and every time you come over here and we easily beat you, and we feel that you can be good, but he said you need to just choose one character and go ahead and master that character first. So I said, okay. So I got on the joystick that was there as on Versus City, and I just kind of spun the joystick around a few times, and it just happened to land on Claw. So I said, okay, Claw, I'll use this character. At the time, I didn't know what the character of Claw was. I just, knew that, okay, I randomly chose this character, so I better get good with him. So that's what I started to do. I started playing the character and making him my focus. I played 95% Claw Vega, and then the other 5% I'd choose whatever character just to kind of mess around and see what was happening. So I started playing Claw, and again, didn't even realize that he was like a high tier character or anything. It was just really like a roll of the dice that I happened to get him. So started messing with Claw, started looking up the movesets, started looking at what his normals are, so on and so forth, just making sure that I knew what did what, and basically his basic general moveset and his special moves. And from there, I started learning, and it takes time too. Some people you can learn like that, but in like my case and many other people's case too, it takes time for all that stuff to sink in your brain. So you have to stick with it. You got to be consistent with that. So I was consistent with learning what Claw's normals were, what they did, his special moves, all that. And it took a while. I remember there was a lot of times when I just didn't dive. I had a good grasp on the gameplay after a while, and I was able to do a lot with Claw with just his normals only. Later on, I started learning how to dive. Even after that, later on after that, I started learning how to do his Scarlet Terror, the reversal correctly. So the process went, learning his normals, learning the character, how he moves, whatever, and how he moves within the system. And then going on more and more, special moves, learning to dive, learning how dives work, and then start to get to the point where I can, reliably hit the Scarlet Terrors and things like that. And then knowing how to put them together as a complete package. So you learn, master your character. Then once you get your character, kind of master to the point where you think that you can start contending. So now we move to mastering the matchups. And I think that this is the part where most people have some issues and maybe where there's a plateau, is because what do you do when you run into a character that seems to counter yours, or what do you do when you run into a player that seems to know, all the counters to anything that you do, even if on paper, your character may be better than the others. So that's called knowing the matchups and understanding the matchups. And what you do is, so now you already know your character. You're good. You're good with the mastery of your moves, your specials, and all that. But now, how do you apply them in matches against different characters? So I'll give you an example. As I fight Blanca, much different than I fight against Ryu. With Ryu, I can just dive around all day, and I know how to work around some of the things that he does to try and get around me. But with Blanca, I can't really dive because he has that up ball and he's most likely already charged. So as soon as I go off the wall, boom, I'm gonna hit with the up ball. So that's out of the question. Now, there are times that I can dive. There's very specific moments that you can dive on Blanca, but it's not easy. It's something that you have to know about, basically prior to that happening. It's a tough, to get those things just like that in matches, unless you've seen it before, or unless you've been exposed to it before. So what you have to do is, once you learn your character, now it's time to learn the matchups. And again, what do I mean by, matchup learning is, how do I fight X character? And then how do I fight against X character, and how do I fight against X character? So I'll give you a little bit of example so as Cammy. So when I'm fighting in Claw against Cammy, I'm also very defensive, and I'm just waiting for her to try to do a hooligan or try to do her thrust kick or a cannon spike or whatever. And usually when she tries something, I can counter it pretty easily, usually with the slide, maybe with the crouching fierce, maybe with the a stand roundhouse, a Scarlet Terror. Now, do I dive on her, a lot? No, not really. Part of the reason why is good Cammies, if you just go for a raw dive, they'll either hit you with their dragon punch, or they'll hit you, I think, with the close, either medium punch or hard punch, where she does like something like that. That is gonna stuff a lot of what, a lot of Claw's like dive setup. So you don't even want to worry about that. What you want to do is you want to, let Cammy come to you, and then when she tries to move forward, Cammy has to be extremely careful. She can only just kind of walk forward, duck, walk forward, duck, and then maybe try and throw a crouching medium kick to catch, one of your moves. So as Claw, if you're patient, the onus is on Cammy to come to you, and then when she makes a mistake, you punish that, you get some breathing room distance between you and her again, and then continue. It should be a match that's in Claw's favor, but a lot of Claws, when they're fighting that match and they don't know how to fight Cammy, they have never run up against good Cammy, what happens is those good Cammies blow them up, because these Claws are trying to dive all over the place, and the good Cammies, all they have to do is do a neutral jump like medium kick, or like I said, that stand close, I think it's fierce or medium punch, I forget which one. Anyways, so now, fighting Ryu is a little bit different. You can corner Ryu, you can corner Ken, and work them with like stand medium kick, with the stand forward, I believe it is, and do a lot of harassment that way. what I can do, what I like to do is I like to get them in the corner. I like to have Claw's little charge glitch already stored, and then I'll just harass them with stand medium kick. If they try to hurricane kick out, they're gonna get hit with the medium kick, or if they just try to jump it out, I'm ready with that Scarlet Terror to knock them out. So again, learn your matchups, no matter what it is. So going into my next point, like what do you do to learn these matchups? And really what it comes down to is the easiest way to do it is just look up videos about how the pros play. You know, you look at your favorite, the person or the character that you've chosen, you look at videos of them playing against other people and you watch and see what they do. And also continue playing as well. I think if you continue playing without having any sort of prior information about it, it gets kind of tough because a lot of things you kind of luck into. But when you're watching the videos of the pros, especially the Japanese, you know, legends and all that, what they are doing is not luck. What they are doing is things they had already pre-planned and what they have deemed works for them. So if you apply what you see them doing to your game, it's, you know, in my opinion, you're gonna get good a lot faster than as if you had tried to do it, you know, 100% entirely on your own. And so let me give you an example. So Dictator fights Claw very well. And I used to get blown up by good dictators, but now that's less and less and less because I've started to kind of figure out exactly how to get better with him. So I'm gonna put up on the screen a match, first to 5 between myself and that arch villain whose dictator is really good. And what I did was we ended up, you know, we fought and I just barely, you know, clinched out that victory, 4-5. And I probably should have lost though, because you know, he went up 4 and I also had to make another huge comeback. It's pretty nuts. But anyways, able to get the victory, but at the same time, I'm like, well, there were some things that I did wrong that I shouldn't have done, or, you know, what could I have done better to make sure that never got to 4-5 and that was like 5-0 or 5-1 or 5-2 or something like that. You know, what exactly was it that I should have done? So what we did was, my wife and I sat and we watched that full match and we took note of what I was doing, what wasn't working very well, and what I could do, you know, better. And so we identified a few key things. One of the things that kept messing me up was when I would do, I would get Dictator in the corner and I would do Claw's suplex against Dictator in the corner. I would try to jump up and then catch Dictator on the way down with like a jumping roundhouse or fierce or whatever. But I realized that every time I did that, the Dictator, that arch villain, was doing his jump back medium punch and looking for that juggle. And so he touched me once with that stupid thing and then boom again. And that was like 30% damage off those stupid 3-hit juggles. You know, I hate that move, but you gotta learn how to deal with it. So anyways, it happened a lot of times, and those were round enders. You know, that move would lead to a bunch of mix-ups and stuff, and it's no good for Claw. So what we did was, once we finished watching that match, then I pulled up on YouTube, and you can check out his channel. It's called MaoDB, MAO space DB. If you look at a lot of those videos, especially from the 2017 through 2019 period, you're gonna find a lot of great first to 5s to look at. So if you're you know, wondering about a character and how the pros do it, look at that channel, and there's a lot of good stuff on there. Anyway, so we pulled up a first to 5 between Mao and then that arch villain. He had traveled to Japan to go play against those guys. So I was able to see what Mao had done. And one of the things that I identified, there were 2 things that I identified that I needed to add to my game plan. Number 1 was whenever that arch villain would do, and I'll try and put this on the screen too as well. Whenever he would go for his, I think it's the Devil's Reverse, Mao would immediately go to the opposite wall with his wall dive and usually catch him on the way down on this recovery. So if Dictator threw out a random Devil's Reverse right there, Mao would immediately fly out and then catch him on the way down. I wasn't doing that. What I was doing was I was trying to walk under it, whatever, and the Dictator player would get me, every single time. It was hard to escape. And then the second thing too was when I would suplex, when Mao would suplex Dictator, the Dictator again, that arch villain would go back and go for those jump back medium punches in the corner. So he's basically jumping straight up, but the game thinks that you're jumping back, so those medium punches are going to be juggleable. And what Mao would do is he would just kind of slightly step back and then wait for Dictator to fall down right onto his crouch fierce punch. Boom, there it is, lightning bolt, or lightning light bulb right in the in the brain. There it is. That's what I need to do. So now the deal is now we need to put that into your matches. So now you got to play matches against Dictator players, go into training mode, whatever you got to do just to get that in your muscle memory now. So so what's going to happen now is whenever I do that suplex to Dictator in the corner, and I'm thinking that Dictator is going to come up and do his thing, I'm going to wait for a second and sit there and get him with the crouch fierce. If Dictator changes it up, okay, then I'll change it up too as well. But for now, that's an option that's going to work really well, and hopefully I'll be able to put these in the or put it together for future Dictator matches so they don't get quite so close. I'm not the type of person who enjoys like super close matches. I like to just steamroll them and get over with. That's the way I think everybody in the end likes to play like that, or wants that to be the case, just so they can go there, get it over with, they're done. So that was one thing, or that was a thing that was able to help me to get better, was to sit there, first know your character, master your character, or no, before you master your character, first master like understand the game mechanics and how the game works, how it flows, then master your character, and then once you master your character, it's time to know the matchups. Now once you start getting a good handle on the matchups, there's one last variable that I want to talk about. And this variable is when you run into high-level players, because what's going to happen is now you've understood the matchup and how to play it, and most people that you come across, you can take them down. But now you get to the point where you start having to figure out the matchups of not the character, but the matchups of the player. Because once you get to high-level competition and you get the pros, now you have to learn how to counter the things that the pros are doing with their character, and they will be different. Okay, for example, we're talking about Dictators. So that arch villain plays extremely different than someone like Reno MD. Now they're both great Dictators, but what I can tell you is that I have a hard time fighting against Reno. So Reno has basically perfected the art of being basic, I guess would be the best way to put it. And so the things that I do, he's already ready for that. He's already waiting for that. So, if I can beat Dictator X, but I can't beat Dictator Y, then there's a reason for that. So now I have to sit there and look and see exactly why it is that I can't take out Reno. Why it is that it's so hard to beat him. And now you need to work on those specific muscle memories for that player themselves. And then once you get to that point, you're doing pretty well. Now, number one, it takes time to get to that point. Nobody's going to be playing Street Fighter 2 and then within like a month they're winning tournaments. Doesn't happen that way. Sometimes it takes months, sometimes it takes some years. I think I've been playing for about 4 years. Yeah, something about that, about 4 years on and off now. And there's still things that even I have to learn and that I'm finding out every day. As long as you keep the consistency there, then it's gonna, you're gonna keep moving forward and doing better and better and better. Now, with that being said, again, people learn different ways, but this has been something that has really helped me to get better. So, I'm just gonna cap it off by saying, go find people who are gonna kick your ass, number one. You know, you're gonna dump some quarters in, you're gonna play a lot of you know, games on 30th, whatever you gotta do. Find better players than you, because the better players kind of force you to get better. They force you to start figuring out ways and making the brain think about how to do what it's doing. Okay, make sure you have a core understanding of the game. Make sure you have a core understanding of your character. Okay, do your best to make sure, like, when you are completely comfortable moving that character around with your joystick. Once you're comfortable, again, now it's time to move on to the individual matchups. What do these matchups, how do you play it out? Can I dive on Blanca? Yes and no. More no than yes. Can I dive on Cammy? Same thing, more no than yes. Can I dive on Ryu? Yeah, Ryu's pretty easy. Can I dive on Ken or Oken? I would say more no than yes, because of his fierce dragon punch, you know, kind of catching Claw off his own wall, things like that. So understand those matchups. And then once you got to the point where you understand the matchups pretty well, then you're gonna have to start looking at individual players and how they play, and then learn the matchups based off that play style. You gotta do what you gotta do to defeat them. Good case in point is Holly Holm and Ronda Rousey. When they fought, nobody thought that Holly Holm was gonna beat Rousey, because Rousey was, you know, on top in this whole deal. You know, I think she was still like Conor McGregor at that time. But what Holly Holm did, what her team did, was they made the game about countering everything that Ronda did. So they sat there and they looked at a shitload of videotapes and watched and identified key weaknesses in Ronda. They identified things that Ronda did very well, and they put Holly's training regimen specifically to get those muscle memories to counter everything that Ronda did. So when Ronda and Holly met up, Holly had the answer for everything that Ronda was doing. You know, she made Ronda look like an amateur, and in the end, Holly was able to pretty easily, you know, take that UFC championship belt from Ronda. So if you think about things like that, you know, like how they do that, and you apply it to playing, you know, your fighting game of choice. In this case, it's you know, Super Turbo. Then you will probably have a pretty good base on how to get better and how to be able to deal with tough competition. You know, number one, never give up. And yeah, it sucks to lose, but sometimes the only way to learn is to lose. So do your best on that account. And until then, hope you guys enjoyed this video. I'm gonna probably finish it off right here, and I will talk to you guys next time.